The Chicago Bulls are continuing on with their draft process. And from some notable names that report around the Chicago Bulls have began interviews and will host other guys in for interviews sometime this week. So on this episode, I'm going to ask, are the Chicago Bulls hinting at a draft trade with their latest prospect interviews? Very, very interesting. Y'all know we're going to talk about it and break it down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on this episode. If you're tuned in with me today, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well as we continue on through the draft process for our Chicago Bulls, hoping that these guys finally can do something smart around here, because it seemed like it's been a while since they did something smart. Maybe since the Montes Buzelis selection, but that fell in their lap. So how much credit do you give those people? You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, we ain't going to hate. We're going to go ahead and just keep it real and keep it pushing. But, hey, we got a number of people that appear to be on the Chicago Bulls list for names that they're going to be interviewing with. And, it's a nice little list. We got guys like Asa Noa on the list, Colin Murray-Boyles, Jace Richardson, Liam McNeilly, Thomas Sora, and Trey Johnson. Now, I just want to go ahead and just talk about each prospect real quick. We talking about Asa Noa. My man's out of Georgia, 6'9" front court player. Man, and it's very, very interesting because there's some people that have had Asa Noa coming to the Chicago Bulls, but there are some people that see him being selected later down in this year's draft. This is a guy that can come in and give the Chicago Bulls a lot of defense that they so desperately need, especially in that front court. Me personally, I'm really am focused on the front court being an improved area for the Chicago Bulls. Why not look at a guy like this? And they have already began those discussions and looking out for him. This guy definitely is one of those guys that could be on the Chicago Bulls list. And rightfully so, simply because how mobile he is, the type of defense he can bring to the squad. And if he's able to improve that jump shot and be able to move further away back from the basketball rim, should be a huge addition for the Chicago Bulls. You already know. But the next guy on the list that the Chicago Bulls have on their list is Colin Murray-Boyles, forward out of South Carolina. Not a lot of people is too sold on CMB. Even some of my own people I respect. Look, I'm going to go out here and just say I'm going to do a little bit more research before I have that determination. But, hey, you can't be mad for the Chicago Bulls doing their due diligence. Now, when you look at some of the measurables coming in at 6'6" with a plus 7-foot wingspan for a guy like Colin Murray-Boyles, look, that kind of fits the mold of what we've seen this front office go after before. You know what I'm saying? Going out there and looking at guys like Dalen Terry, looking at guys like Julian Phillips. You know what I mean? Looking at guys like Patrick Williams. You know what I'm saying? Those guys that come in with the length and the nice wingspan, which is all fine and dandy if you can get the best out of those players. But for the most part, it's been a lot left to be desired from a lot of these selections that the Chicago Bulls have made. You know what I'm saying? There is some concerns about this man offensive game, but a lot of people are looking at him like, hey, he one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in this draft. So it's very, very interesting to say the least, but we'll see what's going on with that one. The next one is Jace Richardson. My man's coming out of Michigan State. Now, this is a guard. The Chicago Bulls have not met with him, but they do have a meeting set with him on Friday. It's pretty much saying that, according to Casey Johnson, that this guy is gaining a lot of momentum has gained a lot of momentum throughout his freshman year, especially coming from Tom Izzo. And hey, shot 41% from the three, not necessarily bad. He is one of the smaller players on the court, though, as a guard. So what does that necessarily mean with the Chicago Bulls looking at a guy like Jace Richardson? Me personally, if the Chicago Bulls are going to start looking at other guards and looking at other players like that, could there be some more potential changes coming with the roster? I'm not throwing any players out there. You make that determination on your own. You know who we kind of alluding to if you go out there and see if the Chicago Bulls are going to be making the change at the guard spot. I don't necessarily want to do it, but yes, we got to call it how we see it. The Chicago Bulls, if you make some type of guard move, what does that mean for you guys like Kobe White? Even though we don't like to say it, even though I personally would not be touching Kobe White at all. Just me. But next on the list, we got my man's Liam McNeilly, forward out of UConn. Look, this is one of the first, this is not the first time I've heard that him being linked to the Chicago Bulls. Can't remember where I seen it at, but that was a mock draft that was out there that saying that, hey, looking at how the Chicago Bulls want to play a different style of play and how they change the shooting profile of their team, Liam McNeilly might feel the void or be an addition that the Chicago Bulls are really looking at 12. Now, I will mention, though, even though the guy is viewed as a guy that can go out there and shoot the rock, he did only shoot 31% from the field, but he did have 5 attempts per game. You take that for what it is. But I did like how the guy can move around on the field. I believe he is not crazy athletic, but I think that he can, yeah, I think he has a decent feel of the game with just some early looks at him. And yeah, it'll be interesting. He said, but the Chicago Bulls, according to Cody Westerlund, they have not spoken with Liam McNeilly yet, but the plan is to have a sit down with him sometime this week. My bad. They go to Liam McNeilly for y'all that want to see what my man's looking like. There you go. There you go. The next person on the list is a center, Thomas Sora, coming out of Georgetown. Look, hey, I just think that this guy's a hell of a basketball player. Might not be a guy that can jump out the gym, but a guy that he has a really good feel of what it means to be active on the defensive side that can really come out there and change and make a difference for you. This guy comes in with a 7-foot wingspan as well, has some decent passing ability, and be able to make quick decisions. He definitely fits what the Chicago Bulls are looking for. He definitely can come in and give the Chicago Bulls a lot of things that they are missing right now. So, hey, I think it's going to come down to what this kid is really made of, how he intends to be utilized with the Chicago Bulls, how he intends to improve his game. So it's going to be very, very interesting for the Chicago Bulls. Another guy on the list, and the last guy on the list that we have thus far, is Trey Johnson, guard out of Texas. We just had that conversation about Jace Richardson. But if you're talking about a guy like Trey Johnson, it don't look like he gonna be available at 12 for the Chicago Bulls. So what are their intentions by having to sit down with Trey Johnson? Now, this is a guy that was an absolute bucket getter, averaged 19.9 points per game in year one with the SEC, shot 39% from the three on nearly 7 attempts per game. Hey, and found his way to the free throw line quite a bit. So then in the draft, he went out there and showed some really good stuff out there, pretty much going out there and hitting 68% of his aggregated jumpers and drills and measured in with a 6'10 wingspan. Yeah, that's a very intriguing prospect to bring on your roster. However, if the Chicago Bulls are interested in Trey Johnson, you potentially might have to move up for this player. Hence why the main topic of this whole entire thing is looking at it like, are the Chicago Bulls hinting that they might be interested in moving up? And then with guys like Liam McNeilly on there, Jace Richardson, who has been mocked to the Chicago Bulls in some mock drafts out there, do you have an intention to move back? Or if one of these guys fall, further down in the draft, do you utilize the second round pick and maybe some other draft capital from the future to move back up to select one of these guys that we previously talked about? That's why it's very, very interesting. That's why I'm trying to see what the Chicago Bulls are really trying to do with this. Because if let's say for a sake of discussion, Asa Noa, something happens with him and you can see that he potentially moved back a couple slots or something like that. Do you move back so you can get some additional capital maybe in this year's second round so you can have a couple more bites at the apple? What would the move be? Because I think, like I said, I think the Chicago Bulls, they're pretty much set in their backcourt with Kobe White and Josh Giddey. We'll see how much Josh Giddey and how he's going to make and how long he's going to be with the squad. But I still think that regardless of what it's going to look like and how high you are on some of these prospects and what it's going to be, a potential draft trade could be on the horizon for the Chicago Bulls. I'd rather stay put, especially if you have a few of these guys on your docket. And if one of them can slide to 10, you take the 10. And then let's say for a sake of discussion, McNeilly falls to like the back end of the first round, you could potentially move up then. But I'd rather with that 12th pick stay put. But with some of these interviews and more interviews, I imagine that they're going to have, the Bulls are trying to open themselves up to having a lot of options. And I'm not mad at that because they have a lot of, they have to improve this team. And I think that the focus should be improving this team on however you got to do that. It is what it is. It is what it is. But y'all, that is it for this episode. Just want to go ahead and give you guys a quick update on what took place and what's coming out surrounding your Chicago Bulls. We'll definitely be pushing out some of these draft prospects and breaking them down a little bit further as the days go on. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned in. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you want to be a part of the mailbag episode, you can call in. The number to do so is 773-242-9219. We appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always see red, and y'all already know we're going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac. Gang.